Hello everybody, and welcome back to the King Fox channel. My name's Matt Conager, and I'm building a Kit Fox Series 7 STI, which is still over there behind me. It's going to be a continuation of the vertical stabilizer in the elevator. You can't really see it probably from here, but I'll get you some close-ups and we'll move in on that. And I'm just going to pick up where I left off from the other day, and thanks for coming back. If you haven't already done so, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the little bell for notifications so you don't miss future videos on the build. Let's get going. Alright, for most of these ribs, I just peeled that moleskin stuff off that they keep on there to must keep them separated when they come packaged together so they don't stick together. It's quite a bit sticky. So now I'm supposed to sand these with 220, and could I use my palm sander? Yeah, but I don't. It's very thin. It's very thin plywood. I don't want to risk the chance of going through some skin and degrading any integrity that it's going to add to the aircraft. So I'm going to hit it with just some sandpaper here, some 220 by hand, and lightly touch the edges. If there's any rough spots, I'm going to hit those. Otherwise, I'm just basically roughing up the surface, I think, to allow the structural adhesive to get some tooth, I think it says in the book, and adhere better to the piece of plywood. Also, I'm going to pay closer attention to the edges where I'm actually applying adhesive to the fuselage and connecting it to the fuselage. For example, you can see here. So in this case, I would pay a little more attention to these front edges where this rib was applied, where it was attached to the fuselage using the structural adhesive. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I've got all the ribs sanded up for the vertical stabilizer, and then after I sanded them, I hit them with my poor man's tack cloth because I don't have an official tack cloth. I'm just going to set them over here, and I'm going to get some Scotch-Brite, and I'm going to scuff up the surfaces here on the powder coating. I'm going to have to lower these yardsticks down, scuff up the powder coating, and then I'll mix up a little bit of epoxy. And hell yeah! I'm probably going to do it in two parts. I'm probably going to do the top side first, and then I'll come back after they're fixed in place and put a fillet around the bottom side, just because that seemed to be easier than trying to go all the way around as you're standing there, and I've got the time to do that. So yeah, so I'm gonna grab Scotch-Brite and move these yardsticks and then hit those up, mix up some epoxy. Hell yeah! And start to put these ribs in place. And before you put them in place, as you set it in there and you get it right where you want it, sometimes they move a little bit. So what it does say in the book is that you can put a dab of cyanocrylite, I think is how you pronounce it. I like to say super glue because it's easier and it sounds cooler. So I'll use some super glue. I'll put a dab on there once I get them in place so they stay, and then I'll mix up my epoxy and get them affixed to the aircraft. So let's get into that. Now I need to hit it with some denatured alcohol after I've got everything scuffed up on the fuselage. And I do remember this denatured alcohol takes the blue permanent marks I have right off the airframe. So I'm gonna be careful not to hit the marks that I've got on the rudder for now, so I can keep my yardsticks in place and use those marks to line myself back up. But worst case scenario, I erase them all and I just come back and remark them after everything's cleaned up. So not a terrible thing, but if I can avoid it, I'll try to do that. And you do want to be careful with that Scotch-Brite, because you can pretty quickly go right through the paint on the airframe, and I believe you probably don't want to get down to bare steel. All right, so we'll go ahead and tidy up this denatured alcohol. My little sanding station here. I'm gonna clean that off a little bit and mix up some 9460 high sol. Hell yeah! I need to get a little bit of the phlox to mix in there. I don't know where I put my phlox, but I'm sure it's around here somewhere. All right, we'll get our scale and we'll look for our phlox quick. I already got my cotton phlox, and I've got my resin and the hardener for my 9460. So we'll fire up the scale. You guys know the drill. Put the cup on there, tear it out, and we'll start with, I'm just gonna do about a gram and a gram mix. And when I did the horizontal stabilizer, I used the syringes, which you can use any size syringe you want. Some people talk about using Ziploc baggies. They put the epoxy in the Ziploc baggie, squeeze it down like you're decorating a cake into a corner, snip the corner off the baggie and squeeze it out. That will work fine also. While it's wet, it does clean up pretty easily with just a paper towel. So if you don't like the way your fillets are looking, you can come back and wipe it down a little bit, and I highly recommend that, because it's a bugger to sand it down once it hardens up. And if you got spatters and spits on the fuselage afterwards, you're going to cover that, and any little iniquity, any little piece that's there that is a bump or a bulge is going to show through your fabric. So you're going to want to try to smooth that stuff out later on. As I'm running my mouth, the scale turned off, and I do remember this being a problem yesterday. So let's see if it tells me how many grams I have. 0. That is incorrect. So let me go grab another cup. All right, put the cup on there, tear it out. 0. Let's see what we got here. 3 grams. So 3 grams of resin. We'll do 3 grams of hardener. Of course, that says 7. Therefore, I have 4 grams of hardener and 3 grams of resin. So we'll put another gram of resin in there. I went to 9 and then back to 7. I might have to get a finer scale. I thought this one was pretty accurate, but maybe it's accurate enough. Okay, 8 grams, so 4 and 4. So we'll call that good. I'll mix it up and put some ribs in place with our cyanocrylite, aka super glue. And then I've got my accelerator here. Just spray that on there and it hardens it up pretty fast. So seal these, put that in the track. I'm going to mix this up a little bit before I add my phlox to it. And if I remember right, I think the phlox basically is kind of like your fiber in your fiberglass. It's going to add a little bit of strength, adhesion to it. I'm sorry, strength. It's going to add a little bit of, what do we call it? Shear strength maybe to the resin, to the epoxy. So yeah, it's like adding fiberglass in on your fiberglass layup. If you didn't put the fiber in there, I think you could put the resin on there and it wouldn't be as strong. So we don't have dissimilar metals here, so we don't have to use our micro balloons. All right, I've got a nice gray paste, and I'm going to continue to mix for 15 seconds afterwards. I'll turn that scale off. Of course, when you want to turn it off, it doesn't, and when you don't want it to turn off, it turns off. All right, that's got a nice gray look to it. Take a peek at that. Isn't that nice? Try to get that held just right into the light. There we go. You can see that. And then we'll open up our phlox. You're probably not supposed to breathe this stuff either, but this is a little bit more cottony. Kind of looks like, well, you can get a pinch of it. You can see that. So I just sprinkle a little bit of that in over the top. like some frosting. It's kind of like powdered sugar. I'll put a little bit extra in there. There we go. So you can see the amount I have in there. And I'm just going to incorporate that into the epoxy. I do remember at warmer temperatures, the flux helped it from running so much, because when it's 80 or 90 degrees outside, this stuff runs pretty good. So
stay in here much longer and I'll really make a splash in the world.
That's another reason why I'm just going to hit one side, because if I try to hit the bottom today and the top, although it's pretty cool out here, it's about 62 in the garage, I might come out tomorrow and have some runs down the fuselage, and I don't want to see that, because that's just something that I have to try to chip off later, or sand, or I'm not really sure the best way to get that off. So if one of you already knows how to get that stuff off, if you want to leave me a comment down below, I would greatly appreciate that, because I have a big mess on the horizontal stabilizer and the elevator that I need to go back and touch up or figure out how to clean up. All right, so I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit, and I'm gonna move back, put a few ribs in, and hit them with a dab of super glue. I'm gonna find letter A, which is there, and I did still just about fell. When I labeled them, I had the labels on top that had the moleskin or whatever it is put up there, so I can see the letter still, so I know which side is up. And this guy probably doesn't need any super glue because it fits in there quite well, but I'm gonna throw just a dab on there. One on the front, one on the back. Sometimes you set them in there and they just fall right out, so this is one of those times where I probably didn't need to do anything, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And I'll hit it with, just give it a little quick spray of the accelerator. Hopefully that doesn't monkey up the adhesion to the fuselage. I don't think it would, but you never know. All right, here's B. I'm gonna do my marks from my ruler back here yet, and the aft marks on the rudder, so I can see where this guy needs to go. Put him in the right orientation. I'm gonna bring my rulers up, get everything lined up, put a dab of super glue on there. This one wants to move just a little bit, so I'm gonna put a drop on each side. Now I took these rulers out completely, so where did I put them? This mark's still on the front of the fuselage, so that makes it easy. And this one I know goes flush with this framing member on the horizontal stabilizer. I should probably wrap that cord up so I don't kill myself. On the back of on the rudder back here, the framing members aren't completely lined up, so I'm just going to bring this one down as far as I can to get it even with this forward rib on the vertical stabilizer. That's not it. That one goes up here. Pretty good fit. Snapped right in. I have it in upside down. Okay, bring him back down. And some glue. This guy in while I'm at it. Letter up. Of course, that clamp's going to be in the way. Let me put a little accelerator on there, because I think I'm going to have to move this clamp. Or I can just turn it a little bit. Just enough to get this guy in here. Here we go. All right. Thank you, Jason, for letting me know about this ruler trick, because it would have helped my layout back here a lot better on the horizontal stabilizer and the elevator. Jason's been giving me some pretty good tips. He's one of the guys I think following my channel, and I appreciate good tips. He's done meticulous work on his build. Taken a look at it over on the EAA website, and he does a good job. Here's my rib with the slot cut in it, letter up. So all I did to cut that in there was just hold it up to the rib and make a straight edge off of there. And that you kind of have to twist it a little tiny bit to get it over that, but all in all it goes in there quite nicely. Mark here is still on the plane, just at the front. Alright, and this long one's going to ride right on this tube. Let her up. That one wants to ride up just a little bit, so I'm going to hold on it for a second. May have heard that one pop loose. Might do another dab back here. Or two. Don't want to glue my lips together, then you guys couldn't hear me talk. Alright, so those are in with some super glue. So I'm gonna grab my epoxy and put some dollops on there while those are sitting in place and this stuff doesn't set up too much. So I'll go back up top, start there. I think the syringe might be a better way to go here, because this is looking pretty horrible. Let me get a syringe. All right, if you do have a syringe, getting it in there it's part of the fun. And you've probably seen, maybe, if you haven't, go back and watch one of the videos where I use these syringes and then I just let them sit overnight, come back the next day, and you give them a little tweak, and usually you can pull the plunger right out. And this is actually one that I've used before because it's got epoxy on the rubber plunger. And then you just bend that front tip a little bit. You can push a nail through there and it'll usually pop that plug out, and then you can reuse it. You don't have to sit there and try to clean it out with solvent and everything else, because that is a nice mess trying to do that. So, and it is quite a bit, it's a little difficult trying to get this stuff in a syringe, but I get these, what is this one? Oh, only veterinarians are supposed to use this one, so I must be a vet. This is a 20 milliliter syringe, and I can't tell you how big the tip is on it, but it's pretty small. I would guess a millimeter or two, and it'll put out a pretty nice little fillet. There's another word I should probably look up. I said fillet in one of my earlier videos.
Fillet.
Somebody corrected me on that, said it was fillet on an airplane, fillet for fish. So we'll look that up later. Anyway, getting this stuff in there, like I said, it's a bit messy. Trying to keep it off your hands can prove to be a challenge. Why don't I wear gloves? Because some things is hard to wear gloves and do. So just get that stuff in there and bring her on down to the front, and she's ready to go. So let's go apply some. I have a pretty fine mess. With these shorter syringes, it's kind of hard to get the tip all the way into the crevice. But if you get a longer tip, then sometimes it's too fat to get in there. So you gotta pick your poison. I might have to throw a clamp on that. It is wanting to sag a little tiny bit in the center. And while I'm here, I'll just put a bead on this one. Try not to glue my yardstick to the fuselage. I don't think I'm gonna, I might try to squeeze a little tiny bit in there, but I don't want to elevate that. I want it to ride right on top of that yardstick, so see if that'll stay up there or if that sags down in the morning. Squeeze a little bit more in there, and I might get in there with my finger, put a glove on and pull that in there so it kind of sticks together. So you can see how I've got those. And that's that goopy mess I made the first time. A little bit better with the syringe. So let me do this one down here. I think I'm about out. Might be able to squeeze a little on top. Tomorrow I can fill those gaps in between there if I have a longer syringe.